Have you ever tried putting a screen protector on a brand new phone? You line it up, you take a deep breath, you lower it into place with the precision of a NASA docking procedure, and somehow one microscopic dust particle appears from another dimension that science hasn't discovered yet. Now there's a bubble. So you lift the glass, and now there are 3 bubbles. You try again. Now there's a fingerprint directly in the center. Eventually, you're standing in the kitchen negotiating with an inanimate object like it's holding your family hostage. The ancient Greeks looked at that exact feeling and said, you know what would make this worse? A goddess. Because today's labor isn't about fighting. It's about not making a mistake. One mistake, one scratch, one bad decision, and the goddess of the hunt performs a factory reset on your existence. Welcome back to Myths and Mayhem, the show where gods create problems, kings make them worse, and heroes are slowly, painfully discovering that hit it till it stops is not, in fact, a universal life strategy. Last time, Heracles walked into the swamps of Lerna believing that every problem could be solved by swinging something heavy. The Hydra politely demonstrated that every time he did that, he created 2 brand new problems. Eventually, he learned that the answer wasn't a bigger sword, it was a better strategy. He also came home with a quiver full of Hydra venom arrows and a completed labor that apparently didn't count because his nephew Aeolus had the audacity to help. Corporate bureaucracy was alive and well 3,000 years before corporate offices existed. Which brings us to labor number 3. King Eurystheus had been thinking loudly from inside of a bronze jar. If strength couldn't stop Heracles, and strength actually made things worse against the Hydra, then maybe the answer wasn't another monster. Maybe the answer was something that he wasn't allowed to fight. I won't send him after a monster, King Eurystheus reportedly told absolutely no one since he was inside of a giant bronze pot at the time. Maybe, he said, I'll send him after a pet. And this time, absolutely no help. Somewhere in the mountains of Acadia lived a deer, golden antlers, bronze hooves, faster than anything that had ever technically had legs. And personally, deeply, absolutely, do not even think about it, sacred to Artemis. Heracles wasn't being sent to kill a monster. He was being sent to politely borrow the one animal in Greece that belonged to a goddess. Let's check in on King Eurystheus. Still alive, still terrified, still conducting official state business from inside what the palace staff had quietly started calling the executive jar. At this point, it had become less of a panic room and more of a lifestyle choice. Visitors no longer asked, "Where's the king?" They asked, "Is His Majesty accepting above ground appointments today?" And the answer was almost always no. The palace guards had developed an emergency procedure. The moment Heracles appeared on the horizon, a trumpet would sound, doors would slam, servants would scatter, and somewhere beneath the palace, clang, a bronze lid sealed shut with the speed of a man who had clearly rehearsed this. One guard looked over the wall. "He's back!" Another guard sighed so deeply it sounded medically concerning. "I'll get the lid." "You already got the lid." "I'll emotionally get the lid." Heracles walked toward the palace wearing the Nemean lionskin across his shoulders. The hide still looked indestructible. The Hydra's poison still coated his arrows. And in only 2 labors, he had somehow upgraded both his armor and his weapons. Using the monsters that he had been sent to kill, at this rate, Eurystheus was accidentally crafting the strongest demigod in Greece, one terrible decision at a time. A palace servant cautiously approached, noticeably further away than the last time. Actually, he brought a larger scroll, not because there was more writing, but because the extra wood let him stand another 3 feet away. "His Majesty has selected your next labor." "Let me guess." Heracles folded his arms. "Something bigger." "No." "More heads?" "No." "Poison again?" "No." Heracles just frowned. Then what? The servant swallowed. You are to capture the Ceryneian Hind. What's a hind? It's a deer. A deer? You want me to catch a deer? Correct! That's it. There are... The servant glanced nervously towards the jar. Conditions. There are always conditions. You must return it alive. That's reasonable. You may not damage its antlers. They are made of gold. Of course they are. And it belongs to Artemis. A long silence. Heracles slowly looked toward the bronze jar, then back at the servant, then back at the jar. Artemis. The one and only. The goddess of the hunt. Yes. The one who turned Actaeon into a stag because he accidentally saw her bathing? Yes. The one who let his own hunting dogs tear him apart? Also, yes. The one whose preferred conflict resolution strategy appears to be aggressive archery? That would be her. So, if I hurt this deer, you anger Artemis. If I lose the deer, you fail the labor. If I scratch the deer, you anger Artemis. If I breathe on the deer wrong, I recommend not considering that experiment. And this time, you're doing it alone. The servant unrolled the second scroll. No Aeolus, no charioteer, no assistance of any kind that could be flagged during an audit from somewhere underground. We've learned from the Hydra. Heracles just blinked. You wrote a policy? I wrote several. I have appendices. I hate that sentence. He beat an unkillable lion and the immortal swamp monster, and now the king has handed him a deer that he isn't allowed to touch and banned his nephew from helping him? The guards exchanged a solemn nod, the kind coworkers give each other when they watch management unveil another spectacularly bad idea. Yeah, this one's gonna get him. Here's the thing about the Ceryneian Hind. It wasn't dangerous. It didn't breathe poison. It didn't have claws. It didn't have 9 heads. It wasn't trying to eat anybody. It was just fast. Not normal fast, not Olympic fast, but blink and you'll miss it fast. Greek mythology looked at the laws of physics and politely declined to participate. Its antlers gleamed like polished gold beneath the sun. Its bronze hooves barely seemed to touch the earth. Every step rang across the mountainside like distant temple bells. Now, if you know anything about deer, you're probably wondering why a female deer has antlers. Excellent questions. And ancient Greeks apparently looked at biology and looked at aesthetics and decided that aesthetics was having a much stronger day. The gods didn't care about scientific accuracy. They care about making entrances. Some storytellers even claimed that there had been originally 5 of these magnificent creatures. Artemis had captured 4 to pull her divine chariot across the heavens. The 5th one got away, which raises an interesting question. How exactly do you escape the goddess of the hunt? Honestly, that's probably its own episode.
Live from Mount Olympus, this is MON.
So, do you think he's ever caught anything that he wasn't supposed to kill? He caught a lion pelt. That was after he strangled it. Then no. I am taking wages. What are the current odds? The hind is 3-1. Against Heracles? No. Against his patience. Temperature around them dropped. Artemis arrived. Not dramatically, just suddenly, the way a thunderstorm arrives. She looked towards the forest below. If that man nicks my hind, I'll have him mounted before winter. I think you might want to rephrase that. I said what I said. This is gonna be good. Heracles found the hind on the very first morning. It stood beside a quiet mountain stream, sunlight dancing across its golden antlers. Every movement looked effortless. Every step looked deliberate. It was the kind of beautiful that makes you forget that you're technically looking at livestock. Heracles smiled. There you are. The hind looked up, directly at him, made eye contact for exactly 1 second, then calmly walked away. Not ran, not panicked, just left. Like someone quietly exiting a conversation they'd already decided wasn't worth having. Heracles just blinked. That was rude, so he followed. The hind kept walking. Whenever Heracles sped up, it sped up. Whenever he slowed down, it slowed down. Whenever he thought that he had finally gained some ground, it casually rounded another hill. By lunchtime, Heracles had climbed 2 mountains, crossed 3 rivers, walked through enough forest to qualify as local wildlife. The hind looked exactly as relaxed as it had that morning. Heracles, he did not. All right. You've had your fun. He crouched behind a bush. The hind grazed peacefully. He waited patiently, which apparently actually for Heracles was probably around 16, 17 seconds. Then he exploded from the brush with all the subtlety of an avalanche. The hind looked over and took 3 graceful steps and somehow ended up 50 yards away. Heracles slid face first right into a patch of wildflowers. All right, I deserved that. The next morning, he climbed a tree. The lion hide snagged every branch within arm's reach. He spent the next 10 minutes dangling upside down while trying to untangle himself from what had already died. The hind wandered past beneath him and just looked up, watched for a moment, and then continued walking. If a deer could sigh, this one absolutely did. By the end of the week, Heracles had attempted ambushes, hidden behind rocks, crawled through tall grass, built a camouflage blind, forgot he was wearing the world's largest lion pelt. At one point, he spent nearly half of an hour trying to quietly sneak through the woods, while dragging roughly 300 pounds of majestic feline behind him. The hind never seemed particularly worried. It simply adjusted its route, the way you'd walk around a puddle. And now, if you've been watching this series for any length of time, you already know the diagnosis. Ancient Greek Hero Syndrome, AGHS, the uncontrollable belief that every obstacle can be solved by applying more force than the obstacle expected, usually involving excessive cardio or property damage, sometimes both. Unfortunately, the hind had apparently discovered AGHS's natural predator, patience. You can't wrestle something that you're forbidden to touch. You can't overpower something that's already gone. You can't intimidate an animal that simply doesn't care. The hind wasn't fighting Heracles. It wasn't even competing. It was just leaving, repeatedly, politely, for almost a year. This wasn't a weekend project. Heracles chased that deer across Acadia, through Thessaly, along the Danube, and eventually into the frozen edges of Hyperborea, which was basically the ancient Greek equivalent of somewhere north of reasonable. People started recognizing him. One afternoon, a villager looked up from repairing a fence. "Oh, hey, you're deer guy." "Please don't call me that." Yeah, my cousin saw you chasing that deer almost 3 months ago." "Yeah? How does it look like it's going for me?" "It looks like it's going pretty poorly." A shepherd near the Acadian border watched him jog past. Do you know there's easier deer? This one belongs to a goddess. Never mind. Several months later, same shepherd, same hillside, same deer. Are you still following it? Yes. How's that going? Still poorly. By month 8, children had started pointing. Hey, look! It's Deer Guy! Heracles looked toward the heavens. I had a name. You still do. It just isn't winning. At one point, Heracles stood barefoot in the snow, watching the hind calmly lick a frozen tree branch. He looked toward the sky. I'm actually letting a coward hiding in a soup pot dictate my entire year. The wind offered no opinion. The deer kept licking the tree. Somewhere above, picking wages. What are the current odds? The hind is still 3-1. Against Heracles? No. Against his patience, I'll take the deer. You're betting against the strongest man alive? I'm betting against his cardio. That's fair. I'm starting to make some real money on this labor. Artemis hadn't looked away from the mountain once. She's being polite. She's what? A hind. She could lose him whenever she wanted to. Every time he starts falling too far behind, she slows down. The gods looked back towards the forest below. Sure enough, the distance never changed. Not because Heracles wasn't catching up, but because the hind wasn't trying to disappear. She was managing him. Oh, what? She's not escaping. She's training him. Exactly. That's even funnier. Somewhere around month 9, something changed. Not the deer, Heracles. Every morning up to that point had started exactly the same. Wake up, stretch, sprint, fail, repeat. Every day came with another brilliant plan. Run faster, hide better, predict where he thought she'd go, take shortcuts, build traps. Every single plan ended the exact same way. Golden antlers disappearing over another hill. Then one morning, he didn't sprint. He got up, he made breakfast, and watched the sunrise, packed his things, and simply started walking. The hind noticed. She looked back, didn't run, just kept walking. So did he. He stopped trying to beat the deer. Instead, he started learning it. Where she drank, where she rested, which paths she preferred, what startled her, what didn't. He matched her pace, never gaining, never falling behind, just showing up, day after day, week after week, month after month. One evening he sat beside a stream. The hind stood on the opposite bank. Neither one of them moved. Neither one of them seemed particularly interested on winning anymore. After several quiet minutes, the hind lowered her head and drank, without taking her eyes off of him. It wasn't victory. It was just trust. Somewhere on Olympus, Athena smiled. There. Oh. There what? He finally stopped chasing the finish line. Hasn't he been chasing it for months? No, he's been chasing victory. Now he's paying attention. I hate when you're right. You must get plenty of practice. For perhaps the first time in his entire life, Heracles wasn't trying to dominate a challenge. He was trying to understand it. Funny how different those two things turn out to be. It happened several weeks later. At another quiet mountain stream, the hind stepped into the shallows to drink. One bronze hoof slipped for half of a second between two smooth stones. She stopped just long enough. Heracles froze. 1 year, thousands of miles, hundreds of failed plans, all leading to one quiet moment. He slowly reached down for his bow. Not the Hydra arrows. Those stayed exactly where they belonged. Some lessons only need to be learned once. Instead, he drew out an ordinary hunting arrow. Somewhere above, Athena leaned forward. Ares stood. Hermes quietly stopped taking bets. Even Artemis watched without blinking. Heracles drew the string. He wasn't aiming at the deer. He was aiming at the smallest opening imaginable. One shot. The arrow flew. It slipped cleanly between the tendon and the bone, pinning one front leg just enough that she could no longer spring away. No blood, no broken bone, no lasting injury, just enough. The hind stumbled. It didn't fall. She looked back at Heracles with an expression that somehow communicated, "Seriously?" Heracles immediately lowered the bow. He approached slowly, hands open, voice quiet. "I know. I'm sorry. Almost done." For the first time in nearly a year, the hind didn't move. She let him gently lift her onto his shoulders. Somewhere on Olympus, Hermes dumped a mountain of coins into Athena's hands. "I hate paying out to wisdom. You get used to it." "I still think tackling would have been faster." "It also would have got him killed." "Fair." The forest, it went silent. Not gradually, instantly. Birds stopped singing. The wind stopped moving. Even the leaves seemed to decide that they had somewhere else to be. Heracles sighed. "Well, that can't be good." "No, it isn't." Artemis stepped from between the trees, silver bow already in hand. Moonlight somehow followed her, despite being the middle of the afternoon. Apollo stood a few paces behind her, looking considerably more relaxed. Mostly because he wasn't the one whose favorite deer had just been borrowed. Artemis didn't look at Heracles first. She looked at the hind. No blood, no broken bones, no panic, just calm. Then she looked at Heracles. "You've been chasing my hind." "Yes." "You finally caught her." "Yes." "You know she belongs to me." "I do." Apollo quietly took a step backwards. He had seen enough family arguments to understand that volunteering opinions was rarely a survival strategy. Finally, Artemis spoke again. "You had opportunities." "Yes." "You could have injured her months ago." "I could have." "You could have poisoned an arrow." "I didn't." "You could have trapped her." "I didn't." "You could have sprinted after her until one of you collapsed." "I tried that. For about 9 months." "That's fair." Finally, Heracles shrugged. "I didn't choose this labor. If it had been my choice, I would have left her exactly where she was. But I gave my word, and I intend to keep it." Artemis studied him, and then studied the hind again. "You've changed." Heracles thought about that. "The lion taught me strength wasn't enough. The hydra taught me that force makes things worse." He looked down at the hind. "I think this one was teaching me that not everything belongs to me just because I can catch it. Honestly, I don't think I caught her. I think she decided I wasn't trying to hurt her, and then let me think I did." For the first time, Artemis genuinely looked surprised. She walked slowly toward the hind, ran one hand gently along her neck. The deer leaned into the touch, completely relaxed. "You earned something today." "I caught a deer." "No, you earned her trust. Those aren't the same thing." "No, they're not." Artemis lowered her bow. Not all the way, but just enough. "Bring her to Eurystheus. Let him see that you've completed your task, and then bring her back. Today. She belongs in the wild." "She always has. That was the plan." "It was?" "I've spent an entire year trying not to upset you. I'm not about to improvise now." If I find so much as one hair different when I check her? Yep, mounted by Christmas. You've been talking to Athena. She's difficult to avoid. I meant the trophy version. Right, that's definitely what you meant. For just a heartbeat, the ghost of a smile crossed Artemis's face. Apollo noticed it. He wisely chose not to comment. It's funny that word travels surprisingly fast when the strongest man in Greece walks into Mycenae carrying a glowing golden deer. The palace guards spotted him first. He's back with the deer! Is that one shiny? Apparently. I'll get the jar! Beneath the palace, a bronze lid creaked open exactly 2 inches. A nervous eye appeared.
Is it alive?
Yes.
Is Artemis here?
Probably. The lid immediately lowered another inch. Heracles walked into the courtyard. The hind stood calmly beside him, looking significantly more comfortable than Eurystheus. The palace servants approached very cautiously. His Majesty acknowledges the successful completion of your 3rd labor. Please hand over the deer. Gladly. He stepped backward. The servant blinked. No, to His Majesty. Personally. Of course. Heracles looked at the bronze jar. Come get her.
Bring her closer.
I am.
Closer.
You're underground.
That's your problem.
No. Heracles folded his arms. This is becoming a pattern. The servant quietly stepped further away. He had learned. Eventually, the bronze lid lifted just enough for one trembling hand to emerge. It reached very cautiously toward the hind. The moment Heracles let go, the hind did exactly what she had spent the entire year proving that she was exceptionally good at. She left. One graceful leap, then another, then another. Golden antlers disappeared over the palace wall before anyone managed to say a word. Silence. Heracles watched her vanish into the hills, then dusted off his hands. Well, I brought her from somewhere beneath the palace. The sound halfway between outrage and a tea kettle reaching operating pressure.
You let her go.
I offered her to you. You didn't take her. That's a logistics issue, not a field operations issue. The servant coughed suspiciously loudly. It may have been laughter. The bronze lid cracked open exactly far enough for one furious eye.
That doesn't count.
Really?
You failed to deliver her.
I delivered her. You failed to retain her. I wasn't instructed to retain her.
I hate when you do this.
Do what?
Use my own rules against me.
The servant quickly unrolled another scroll. Technically, His Majesty did request personal delivery. He received personal delivery. Whether or not His Majesty accepted delivery appears to be an internal management issue. One guard leaned forward. He's getting promoted. Assuming that the king doesn't execute him first. That's fair. The servant kept reading. For the official record, the labor has been completed without injury to the sacred animal and without outside assistance. You checked? We've become very thorough. Somewhere over the palace, the sky remained noticeably overcast. Nobody needed to explain why. Eurystheus looked upward, then toward the open gates, then back toward the increasingly nervous clouds. Finally,
Fine. It counts.
I appreciate your flexibility.
Don't push it.
To be fair to the myth, this is really how it ends. Heracles captures the hind, shows her to Eurystheus, and then returns her safely to Artemis. And somehow, the only casualty is the king's dignity. Again, I love where the Greeks placed this labor. The lion taught Heracles that strength wasn't always enough. The Hydra taught him some problems actually get worse the harder you fight them. The Hind teaches him something even more uncomfortable. Some things can't be forced. Trust, healing, wisdom, learning, real relationships. You can chase those things as hard as you want. Demand they happen on your schedule. Try to overpower them, they don't care. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is just keep showing up. Patiently, quietly, without trying to control everything. The strongest man in Greece spent an entire year losing a foot race to a deer, not because he wasn't strong enough, but because strength had never been the lesson. Patience was. Turns out, patience isn't the opposite of strength. It's what strength looks like after it's finally grown up. In conclusion, that is how the strongest man in Greece spent an entire year chasing a deer and somehow walked away a better hero because of it. 3 impossible labors, 3 completely different solutions. Muscles are still there, courage is still there, but now something else is growing too: wisdom. Eurystheus thought he had finally discovered the perfect trap. Instead, he accidentally gave Heracles one lesson no monster ever could. Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones where nobody is trying to kill you. Sometimes the greatest victory is learning when not to fight. Next time Eurystheus decides that if his sacred wildlife wasn't going to get the job done, maybe something with tusks will. We're heading into the mountains of Artemis, where Heracles meets a boar the size of a small house and discovers exactly how much he hates snow, and learns that sometimes the best strategy is letting winter do most of the work. Until then, stay curious, stay legendary, and remember, if the thing you're chasing keeps calmly staying one step ahead of you, maybe life isn't asking you to run faster, maybe it's asking you to become the kind of person that is worth slowing down for. See you next time. And if you're enjoying Myths and Mayhem, hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes.